Red FM.
I'd say, Paul, at this stage you'd have to be happy with the win and be happy that the fact that Cork got over because it's a difficult place to go, and after Seanie McGrath got a smashing goal off his left hand maybe a couple of seconds ago, you felt that maybe Dublin might rally and get an equaliser. Patrick Horgan chipped in with a fantastic score. Luke Farrell got a great score off his left, so they'd be pleased enough with the victory without being overly impressed with the overall performance there.
Yeah, how good were Dublin today, Seanie? In years gone by, this would have been seen as a fairly easy game, but they're a different kettle of fish now.
Yeah, well, I remember going to Dublin way back, say around 97, Paul, and we got beaten by them. They're always difficult in Parnell Park. I suppose in Championship, they're just sort of flatter to deceive. In the league games, Parnell Park is a really, really tight pitch. The ground is nearly always bumpy, even in the summer. And, the crowd right in the top. And the Dubs always bring a big crowd. And there wasn't a huge Cork crowd there, so any Dublin score was greeted with a big cheer, whereas Cork was fairly mute. But I don't know, their striking isn't great, to be honest. The first half, a fella like Seanie McGrath, who's normally very reliable, he missed a few scores from frees and from play. Dr. Callan seems to have gone away back. He didn't impose himself at all in the game. So, they weren't that impressive. And Daly is still doing good work. There's good guys up there, Stephen Heine and Joey Barton, or Joey Boland, they're good players. But up front, they just don't seem to have enough forwards. And, as I said, they did get the goal towards the end and they made it exciting and they actually brought it back to a point. It was 1-11 at that stage. But, you just couldn't see Dublin winning at any stage in the game.
Yeah, it was a big day for Izaki at centre forward, Seanie. It's starting to become a bit of a problem position for Cork. Is Izaki the answer there?
I'm not sure. Maybe persist with him again next week against Tipperary, but he didn't cloud himself in too much glory today. He was okay, he won a bit of ball out of the air, but again his distribution was mediocre. He got a good score, and at times, he pulled on the ground at a time when he should have had, instead of, over relying on the pick. At times he left to go on the ground and he got some, half quality ball into the full forward line, but over the 70 minutes he didn't do a whole pile. Custom was substituted in the end and he went in full forward, and again he didn't, he wasn't overly impressive in the full forward line either. But, at the same time, it's a new position to him, and, I would still persist with him, and, he'll be up against, say, like Conor O'Mahony next week against Tipperary, and that'll be another good test for him. And he was on Stephen Heine today, who's their captain, and he's their leader, and, he gave Izaki enough of it. I wouldn't just, cast him aside on the basis of that. I'd give him another chance next week and see how it goes, because, as you said, it's still a fierce problem position for Cork.
Yeah, you mentioned Michael Cusson as well there, Seanie. He did a lot of damage against Waterford last weekend, but he seemed to be quiet compared to then. Yeah,
Tomas Brady is a good full-back. Most, full forwards find him hard to handle, and Cusson was the same today. At no stage in the game did Cusson look comfortable on the ball. Any ball that came into him, he was struggling. His touch was mediocre, his striking wasn't great, and to be honest, he was quite selfish with the ball on other occasions. In the second half there, Knockton made a great run. There was sort of an overlap on, and Knockton was nearly clean on goal, but Michael took a shot and he was blocked down, broke his hurling. It just looked sloppy. It didn't look like, typical Cork style hurling, it was slow and pedestrian so he just needs to speed things up. Now, to be fair to him, that's maybe where the games will stand to him. Again, you have to keep persisting with him because he's been away from the game so long. He's been concentrating on football for the last couple of years, and he's shown the last couple of games that he can score. Maybe to off day, the pitch might have suited him. As I said, it's bumpy and it's tight, and I would definitely persist with him next week against Tipperary. Again, have him in on number 14.
Yeah, and a few of the younger lads making their appearances today. Aidan Ryan played, and Luca Farrell came on as well, I think. How did they get on?
They did fine. Aidan Ryan is good and strong and tall, and he won most of the balls that came down on top of him. I think his man in the end was substituted. He was on Liam Ryan, I think number 12. Actually, most of the half forward line was struggling, was substituted in the end. But Aidan did good. I've seen him earlier in the season in a couple of the Walsh Cup games against UCC there now, and a couple of challenge games. Seen with Middleton last year. He's good and strong, competitive, and he was well worth his chance today, and he played well. Luca Farrell was very excited when he came on. He was unlucky with the score, but he got an insurance point off his left. It wasn't the hardest score in the world, but he had to steady up, and he had to kind of get a bit of balance, and he struck over a nice insurance score. So, they did well, and particularly like Farrell, obviously I'd be always looking at the forwards myself, and I thought, I always felt that he was a good buzzy type player, and I was glad he got a chance towards the end. And you know what, I wouldn't mind seeing the guy get a start now. It'll be a difficult game against Tipperary, but I think the park would suit someone like Luca Farrell. And I'd love to see him get a start now next Sunday and see what he does for the 70 minutes.
Yeah, and it is Tipperary next weekend, Seanie. Set up to be a massive game. It'll be a dress rehearsal for the championship game, obviously, and a win will put Cork into a league final as well.
Yeah, that's kind of the game. The two games that I would have earmarked at the start of the year really would have been, say, in the league, would have been Kilkenny and Tipperary. And even though the Kilkenny game wasn't overly impressive, it was still a victory. It was still a sort of moral, psychological victory, if you want to call it that. And I think the same for next Sunday. Obviously we'd like to see performance, but if Cork can win next Sunday, whether it's in style or whether it's a scrappy, they can go back, they can look at the league and say, look, we got wins over the big teams, we beat the Kilkennys, we beat the Tipperary to this world. And the victory next week anyway sets them up for the league final, and it looks like that Cork are targeting a league victory or a league final appearance from the start of the year, and I think it'll be good. It'll be good for the championship because Cork haven't won anything of note in the last couple of years. Their last major coup was the 2006 Munster Championship, so they need to start winning. And you can see the emphasis that Cody puts on the league in the last couple of years. A good hard league campaign certainly sets them up well for championship. I think Cork are the same now this year. Good victory next week, and maybe could take the foot off the gas a little bit against Galway and then look forward to the league final and I think it's the second.
Tipperary next Sunday, so Shawnee, obviously they had a draw this afternoon against Waterford. They had a very strange result, that defeat up at Parnell Park against Dublin on the first day out, so Cork will fancy themselves on Sunday. They
will. I mean, you'd always fancy Cork against Tipperary in Páirc Uí Chaoimh anyway. I mean, I suppose Semple Stadium is like a second home as well, but Cork at the moment are the team on form. Tipperary are struggling a little bit. They just seem to have a bit lethargic after last year. Sometimes that can happen, I suppose, when you go far in the championship and you get to an All-Ireland final. Obviously they didn't win it, but they got to the final. They had a long season and they just seem to be carrying a bit of that over. Owen Kelly is playing okay, but he's not scoring heavily from play. He's getting most of his frees. Lark Hobble was good a couple of weeks ago against Kenny, but since then hasn't been ticking over on the scoreboard. And obviously Pádraig Maher's playing outstanding stuff at fullback, but there just seems to be a little bit of jizz missing in their game at the moment. And again today, I think Davy Fitz again would have been happy with the result. His league form at the earlier parts of the league was poor and they struggled, but he'd have been buoyed by last draw. And again today, he went to Semple Stadium, got a draw. I mean, the way the start of the season went for him, he knew he wasn't going to make a league final. I'd say for the last couple of games, he was just looking for a performance, and he got that now in the last two games. Without knowing the ins and outs of the game, obviously, I just imagine just that the result would have suited Waterford better than Tip. And I think Sheedy would have been the same. He would have been targeting a league final appearance just to build on last year. That was definitely his emphasis last year throughout the league and championship campaign, to win every game, same as Cody. That instills confidence and it instills sort of a better performance for the team. And I think that it probably pushes them out now. If Galway keep getting results, it probably looks like a Cork-Galway final, and Sheedy will be very disappointed with that.
Yeah, just on Kilkenny as well, Shawnee, beaten again today by Galway. They shipped 221 as well. Now, I know Brian Cody isn't going to be pushing the panic button with the injuries they've had and the disruption with the Ballyhale players, but at the end of the day, that's 3 defeats in 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing. It's certainly coming towards the latter stages of the league, so as the league is coming to the end, you'd imagine that Kilkenny's performances will start improving. Of course, he's missing top-class players and fellas like Shefflin, TJ Reid, Cha, the Ballyhale contingent. Actually, maybe one or two of them played today. Maybe Chad played today, but obviously Shefflin is a huge player for them, and Michael Kavanagh still isn't back. Noel Hickey isn't back. His brother Canis Hickey is making a good stab and playing well in the corner. But I'd say he would have been disappointed. But I'm not sure, to be honest, Paul, if this season he would have really, really targeted the league. Ballyhale got to the All-Ireland final and won it ultimately, and after the last couple of years they've had and going for 5 in a row, he needs freshness. He needs fellas to be on their toes come championship time in June. And I'd say, like, at this stage, after the early poor start they had, obviously they've gotten a couple of victories, but I don't think he'd be overly disappointed if they didn't make the league final this year. And I suppose what he'd be looking for in the next 2 games now is to get Shefflin back, get Michael Kavanagh back, get the game time under their belt, try and get a few results, and then set themselves up for the championship. Yeah,
just finally, Shawnee, how happy will Dennis Walsh be tonight heading back down to Cork?
I think he'll be happy enough, to be honest, Paul. I mean, today, I suppose you look at the score and you say 70 points, 111, not the most convincing victory that you'll get, and Dublin maybe aren't that great, but Parnell Park is a really, really hard place to go. Dublin make it really hard for you up there, and Daly's a hard manager tactically. I mean, at stages there he really cramped around midfield. He was trying to create space inside for Alan McCrabb, and he had just won an inside forward for stages in the first half, and that makes things very congested. And for players like Cathal Naughton who like it open and spacey, it makes it hard to get on the game then and to sort of go on those long solo runs. So with those things considered, I think it was a decent enough result. I mean, obviously Dennis is looking for, as I said, for a league final appearance, and it makes it easier for him now going into the last 2 games. Obviously they need a big tip, but as I said, they can maybe take a bit of foot off the gas going into the Galway game, and then they can set themselves up, and I think he'll be happy heading out tonight now with the victory.
Red FM.